from Speak Better Spanish here. Today I'm going to be talking about how I learned Spanish. So this is a question I get a lot, especially when I'm connecting with potential new students. And you know, everybody's Spanish learning journey is different. Mine is a little bit different than yours and everyone else's, but I think it's a good story to share, just kind of how everything came together. So I started learning Spanish when I was 12 and I was in middle school. This was the earliest time I was able to take a foreign language just based on the public school structure and requirements and such. And I started taking it. I really liked it. I really liked it. I was really good at it. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, as the years passed and I continued to study Spanish in the public school system in high school, I kept thinking to myself, like, eventually it's going to get to the point where it's going to be so hard that I'm not going to like it anymore, or I'm not going to be good at it anymore. And that point never came, because I had heard a lot of things, you know, from people that were older than me about, oh, the subjunctive, and oh, this year of Spanish is really hard and stuff like that. And that point just never came. I continued to really enjoy it. I liked learning about the patterns and the irregularities and just, you know, building up my knowledge. So when I was in college, I decided to major in Spanish. I liked it so much. I wanted to keep studying. So I did. And actually studied abroad in Spain for a semester during college. I did a senior level capstone project where I researched traditional and alternative medicine in Latin America. I spent a year researching that and putting together like a 50-page research paper in Spanish, which I presented. And I also did like a volunteer project in my community where I did like an independent study with research and volunteer work about the language needs in my local community at that time. And yeah, and I continued to love Spanish. After I got out of college, I got a job in the government, but the local government, but it had nothing to do with Spanish. I didn't use Spanish at all in my day-to-day life. There weren't a ton of Spanish speakers in my local area, and there weren't a ton of Spanish-speaking types of employment, which is what I ideally wanted to have. So I had a pretty good level by then. You know, I had studied abroad in Spain, and I had obviously taken a lot of grammar classes and some literature classes and things like that in college, and even some conversation classes. So I had a decent level. I was able to have conversations and things like that. But after a couple of years of working in the government, I just felt like something was missing in my life. And I had done a lot of years of tutoring throughout high school and college. And I know that I loved working with people and seeing those light bulb moments where something clicks that it didn't click before. And suddenly some of these concepts that can be really difficult in Spanish are feeling more comfortable, are making more sense, are easier to use. And I loved that. So I decided to start my business online, Speak Better Spanish. At first it was called Rompiendo las Barreras, which means breaking barriers. In my mind, because people that want to learn Spanish is a lot of times so that they can connect with people around them, whether in work, through traveling, in their neighborhood, or in any other way that, you know, Spanish speakers and English speakers might cross paths. But I later realized that my ideal clientele, which is beginners and intermediate Spanish learners, probably don't know what Rompiendo las Barreras is. And even if they do know what it is, they're probably not going to Google it if they're looking for Spanish classes. So that's why I changed my business name to Speak Better Spanish. I've been teaching now about 15 years or so. I've been teaching online since 2014, and I really enjoy it. I've worked with students of all different ages, backgrounds, levels all around the world, done some immersion trips, language and culture immersion trips in Spanish-speaking countries, and hoping to do more of that in the future. But in terms of my Spanish learning journey, to be honest with you guys, when I started my business, I was at an intermediate level. I could have some basic conversations. I could understand some things that were being said. I enjoyed consuming media in Spanish, whether that was movies, TV shows, music, reading stuff. And I could understand a lot of what was being said, but not everything. And I wasn't at the level that I'm at now. And to be honest with you guys, as I continued teaching, I began speaking Spanish every single day. And some of the questions that my students had, you know, sometimes I had to research them, and I'd find things out, and I would learn more, and I would practice, and I would see what kinds of trends people are struggling with and what kinds of topics are coming up and are coming up on a regular basis and that sort of thing. So now I've taught some of the same things many, many, many times, because it's normal that there are a lot of things that we struggle with when we're learning Spanish. And yeah, I really became fluent throughout my journey of teaching Spanish and trying lots of different types of classes, working with lots of different levels of students. And then during that time as well, within the last couple of years, I moved to Mexico. I've traveled extensively in Spanish-speaking countries. I lived in Spain for a while. I traveled Peru for a couple of months. And while I still travel the world and I'm sometimes home in Mexico and sometimes doing other things, I built a lot of really close friendships there in Mexico. So I've learned a lot of specifically Mexican slang and expressions and vocabulary and pronunciation and culture and all of these things like that, which I really, really enjoy. And I love going back to Mexico. It really feels like home for me now. And so even over the last few years, my Spanish has improved. And for example, I was in Spain 2 years ago and I went to meet up with some friends, and then I went up to meet up with them again last week. And they said like, oh, your Spanish has improved so much in the last 2 years. And even, I mean, this year I haven't been in Mexico very much at all, but I still keep in touch with my friends. And I just, over time, it's like a muscle, right? Language is like a muscle, and we build up the strength of it through practice. Immersion is really the best way to do that, or the closest you can get to that. If you're not able to have immersion, then conversations, listening practice, watching stuff in Spanish, these are going to be key. Now, grammar is important, but to a certain extent. And once you reach the point of having a decent level of vocab knowledge and grammar knowledge, it's really important to get out there and speak Spanish. That's what's worked for me. That's what I see works for a lot of other people. So I would really encourage you, if you're learning Spanish, to try and have as many conversations as possible, do as much listening practice as you can. And if you're able to travel or immerse yourself locally, nearby, wherever you live, within a Spanish-speaking community or on trips, this is going to help you out a ton. But yeah, that's my Spanish learning journey, guys. So to summarize, I had academic experience learning Spanish, which got me to a certain intermediate point. And from there, just traveling and immersion, as well as starting my business and speaking with students just like you every single day, learning Spanish and practicing where they're at. That's been how I achieved fluency. So I consider myself now fluent and bilingual. Certainly that doesn't mean that I know every single word all the time, but it means that 99% of the time, no matter where I am in the world or who I'm speaking with, whether I can see their face or not, whether it's over a phone call, I can understand what's being said. And that's the whole idea, right? The idea is not to speak Spanish perfectly. I still make mistakes. The idea is to be able to be understood and to understand the other person. That's the whole point. That's why we're doing this. So once you reach that level, that's amazing. That's really amazing. And being perfect should never be the end goal. So I hope this story helped you guys see a little bit of my background, where I come from, how I reached this point, and hopefully it encourages you to keep learning Spanish. If you're interested in booking a free consultation to chat more with me about how I can help you on your Spanish learning journey, you can do so from the link in the comment section below. If this video was helpful for you, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Gracias. Adios.